Welcome Wayne Glue from WA and Dave O'Neiggs. Welcome once again. Wayne, welcome.
Yeah, to you too. It's good to be here.
Thank you, Fanos. Good to be here. I will let you get the show on the road, my friend.
Awesome. Fantastic. So today, guys, we're going to be discussing something called Article 61 of the Magna Carta and how it basically relates and is still current today with our Australian Constitution. Now, Wayne here is an expert with the Constitution and all types of those matters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the floor to Wayne. We're going to go through through a series of questions. Wayne's going to take us through everything you guys need to know about Article 61, Magna Carta, and what lawful rebellion actually is. So, Wayne, welcome, mate. Wayne, can I ask you, so how long have you been researching into the Constitution, mate?
Since early 1971. It's a fair while, but it's a big book.
How many years is that? If you had to put years on it, how many years would you say you've been researching into the Constitution?
50 years. Well, it's Commonwealth law, actually, and you've got to refer to it as that.
Thank you very much.
It's a Commonwealth Constitution.
Thank you very much.
It establishes the Commonwealth, so it has to be the Commonwealth one. Yeah, and the people of the Commonwealth, that's what establishes us as the sovereign people of this country. We're not sovereign citizens and all that nonsense. We are sovereign and supreme in our own right, both in common law and under our Constitution.
Yep.
If you go back to Hansard, it takes away any sovereignty and supremacy enjoyed by the previous parliaments in the penal colonies that existed prior to the right.
Over to you, gents.
Wayne, continue saying what you were saying before we had the technical interruption, mate.
We go back to the fact that Queen Victoria put all the state constitutions in place with a letters patent on the 29th of October 1900, along with a letters patent for the office of governor of each state. And in that letters patent, it states very clearly the governor is the highest authority in government in each state and must be obeyed. And it also states that we reserve unto ourselves and our heirs and successors the right to change these letters patent. They've never been changed. Now, Billy Hughes, the first Prime Minister, decided he could remove lots of stuff. And when it came to the attention of King George V in late in 1919 that Billy Hughes had decided he'd sign the Treaty of Versailles, and everybody said, oh, we became an independent sovereign nation. What a lot of nonsense. If you look at the letters patent or go to your history part of your library, you'll find out in the archives there is a letters patent issued in February 1920 from King George V, reinstating and reiterating the fact that all Queen Victoria's letters patents are cemented into place. Our Queen Elizabeth II went before the Parliament in 2008, and Channel 9 were there and refused to report on it, and they should have, that she said, I uphold all my great-grandmother's letters patents with Queen Victoria. So they're all here, solid as a rock and can't be touched.
What does letters patent mean?
A letters patent is an order from the monarch to carry out a particular duty in a document. It's like a letters patent in relation to a product, say my computer, would be issued so nobody else can touch it or interfere with it. And all it is a document putting in place a system of law that can't be removed. Only the monarch can do it, nobody else. And they must specifically do it. And we got a clown here in Margaret River says that when Queen Victoria died, so the letters patents. Well, that's a nonsense.
Yep.
Absolute nonsense. They are transferred to their heirs and successors by way of the Royal Styles and Titles Act of Great Britain, not the piece of garbage produced here in 1973. And they did that using the Statute of Westminster Adoption Act of 1942. But where that act fails, they backdated it to 1932. Well, as soon as they did that, they wiped it out because the Constitution is very, very clear. You cannot have retrospective legislation. So it's gone. Went the second they did it. But even if that wasn't the case, Queen Elizabeth did actually give all of her realms the authority to have a Royal Styles and Titles Act, except for Australia and New Zealand because of the constitutional constraints. You cannot change the name of the Queen, otherwise the Constitution, a large section of it, gets removed. So all of the stuff that Gough Whitlam did and the Labor Party and all them was nothing but nonsense. It's nonsensical to say that one person sitting in Parliament can write a piece of paper and take away a constitution put there by the people who are sovereign and supreme. That's just a nonsense. It's an oxymoron.
Is that when they took out the signet?
However, no, that was taken. The kangaroo and emu was put in there in about 1907 by Billy Hughes. He also introduced conscription. Well, conscription is unlawful. If it wasn't, it'd be in our Constitution. And it actually is under Section 5123A, I think it is now. We had a referendum in 1946 and we said no to conscription. But there goes all their forced jabs and everything else. They can't do it. Now, if you look at the borders where they've got these solid borders and all this, that's nonsense. Go to Clause 80 of your Constitution. It says when the colonies become states, the Boundaries Act no longer applies. And the boundary is your border. It's a boundary. And you can't have it. And then it says, however, when the Commonwealth comes into being, the Boundaries Act applies, but only at federal level. So any boundaries set must be set by the Commonwealth government, or Commonwealth Parliament, rather. They're not a government. They never were. They're a parliament.
Okay.
And people have to understand what the parliament is. We are the government. We govern through our Constitution. You go to page 346 in Chapter 1, it states, not all enactments of the Parliament are valid, but laws passed pursuant to, in accordance with, and under the authority granted by the Constitution, and those laws only are binding on the courts, judges, and people of every state. Every other law is void. Then it goes on, it says, if an authority isn't granted to a parliament, it's denied, it remains with the people. So we are governing, and if you go to page 701, it shows you very clearly there's a drawing on that page, or a graph, shows the Commonwealth, quasi-sovereign, that's the people. Underneath it is the Constitution. That is the governing document that grants to the parliaments the right to put laws together, debate them, pass them, and administer them through the judicature. So people think the police sit under the.
Obviously, you have an amazing wealth of knowledge, and you could take us down many roads, but let's move back into where we wanted to go with this. Was really about what we decided to discuss tonight. So I'll go through my next question for you. Why is it important for people to know about our Constitution?
Yep. Because that is our instructions to the Parliament as to how we require them to govern us. They govern for us, not over us. That's very important.
And is every law that is, enacted, it is in line with the Constitution, or it doesn't stand?
If it doesn't line up with the Constitution, it doesn't exist in law. That's it.
Fantastic.
And there's a process which locks it in.
It's a process that locks it in. So it would be safe to say that all of these laws that they're creating at a state level or at a council level, which I've been reading very, very cautiously lately, according to no local government acts or anything being passed with a referendum, which goes against Section 128 of the Constitution, all of those laws that have been enacted by local councils and a lot of our states are invalid.
Unlawful is the word, and anyway, but I'm not going to sit here correcting what you say, but you've got to say unlawful, because
Unlawful.
illegal is legalese, and so you've got to stay out of that area. But you need to understand that if you go to court, you got to be very, very careful.
You're the man. That's why we've got you here. All right, so let's get into the good stuff, shall we? So what is the Magna Carta and how does it tie into our Constitution, and why is it still relevant, Wayne?
Magna Carta remains relevant while we are subjects of Her Majesty or His Majesty or whoever. It's in the coronation oath of the Queen. It was put there by King James III, the first, when he took the throne at 9 years old, and about 26 years old, he'd studied Magna Carta. I know everybody says Magna Carta 1215. Yes, it was put there. No, I don't believe it had the authority given to it at the time, even though it was used by several monarchs.
Yep.
It was susceptible to challenge on human rights alone because they forced the king to sign it. However, King James I became very conversant with it and cemented it into British law and placed it in the coronation oath of the Queen. Now, every politician, before taking their seat in Parliament, and I don't care if they think it's correct or not, that's at state and federal level, must take the oath contained in the Constitution. And the reason I say state level is because it's in every state constitution and it cannot be removed. Nobody has the power to remove that oath. If they do, they remove themselves because they are bound by that oath. So that oath stands. In that oath, it's an oath, by the way, in British law is a covenant between yourself and the Crown, which is God. The Queen is the monarch, God's representative, and she upholds the Protestant faith, the Church of England, Magna Carta, 1688 Bill of Rights. Magna Carta, by the way, is taken out of the book of Matthew to a great extent. And from then, it goes to the Bill of Rights, which is out of the whole Bible. Then you've got the Act of Settlement. Then you've got habeas corpus, which bans single court judges. They're synagogues of Satan, and they were banned in 1640 and again in 1671, I think it was. But then the King James Bible, which is all our common law. Now, that's what they want to take out. They want to take our religious beliefs or Christian beliefs and dump them for a world religion. They want to take away our rights and freedoms to a world government. Well, they're not having it.
What is the history with the Magna Carta? Can you give people a brief history as to what the Magna Carta is? I read it myself. It's amazing, guys. If you haven't read it, I'd suggest you spend a couple of hours of your time and go and read it. Can you please just let people know what was the history behind the Magna Carta and why was it originally signed?
Well, it was originally signed because he was going to get his head whacked off if he didn't. That's King John. Now, the barons got together because King John was ruthless. He was a thief. He stole everything off his subjects. He treated all his subjects as slaves. They were on land that belonged to the barons, and they lived on peanuts, and the tax was horrific. And I mean, you know yourself, in Melbourne's cold enough, but if you were in England and it's bone-chilling cold sometimes in winter, I mean, it gets like that in Melbourne. I've been there. Anyway, but at the end of the day, it puts the people in such a position that they were literally dying because they couldn't get enough to eat. The taxes were so high they couldn't afford to, and yet they worked long hours, 7 days a week. So the barons saw the plight of the people. By the way, the titles to their land were useless then. They were basically, we own the land, the barons, and you are our slaves. And that's how they treated them. Now, Magna Carta was put together by the barons. Now, if you notice in the House of Lords, there's a Lord Spiritual and Lords Temporal. That's to cover religious and non-religious people. That's why it's there. Now, the whole Magna Carta was put together over a few years for the benefit of all of England, all of the British Empire, actually. And when applied, it gives clear rights to everybody. So Winston Churchill was a great exponent of Magna Carta because of the rights it gave to the people.
Question.
And he actually made a speech in relation to 61. Yes.
So would it be safe to say, if you wanted to put it in simple terms for the people, the Magna Carta was created because of the fact that there was a tyrannical ruling that the people had had enough of, and they decided to overthrow the leader?
Well, the barons overthrew him, the people didn't.
Okay.
The barons overthrew him on behalf of the people.
Okay. And then there was an agreement created that no kingdom could ever be ruled like that again if it wasn't an equal agreement between the people and the rulers. Would that be safe to say?
That's correct. Yes.
Awesome.
It was.
All right, so let's get going then. So we've now, what's the main reason why, even though we're in the year 2020, the Magna Carta is still relevant today? And why don't many people understand that?
Because the universities are teaching them that it no longer has any relevance because it controls them too. I mean, Anne Toomey is a pretty smart lady, but she has this weird idea that the government, the so-called government of Australia, which is only a parliament, it's not a government. That's treason to even state that, actually. But they must comply with the provisions of the common law. Magna Carta is the common law. It's entrenched in our Constitution. You read Section 80, which doesn't grant us a total right to trial by jury, but it states in there it doesn't necessarily have to state it because of the Great Charter, which is Magna Carta. Now, there's a Magna Carta walk in Canberra, and I've been there to have a look at it, and it's Magna Carta is on a big plaque there. It's in the entrance to the High Court, and there's several High Court cases through the years that have stated the importance of Magna Carta in our system of law. It can't be taken out. It is the common law of the British Empire. It's applicable in Australia because under Clause 8, we are a self-governing colony of England.
Under Clause 8?
Which is a safe place to be. Yeah, under Clause 8. It is a safe place to be. Yeah. There's 9 clauses. And then there's all the text if you got the annotated one, which is this one.
Clause 8, after the
Clause 8, yeah.
Act. Is that the one? The Colonial Boundaries Act 1895. That's the one? Yep, you can read it, Wayne.
Yep. That's why they can't have close borders. It's not possible for them to close the borders because they have no authority. Now, when it comes to quarantine, Section 69 takes... Oh, yep, all right, you've done it.
Yeah, so Section 69?
Yep. Section 69 says, takes away, there it is there, on a date or dates to be proclaimed by the Governor-General after the establishment of the Commonwealth, the following departments of the public service in each state shall become transferred to the Commonwealth: posts, telegraphs and telephones, naval and military defence, lighthouses, light ships, beacons, buoys and quarantine. Quarantine, there it is. They have no authority. Now, the big problem they have with the military is Section 68. The Governor-General administers the authority of the Queen. There it is there. The Commander-in-Chief of the Naval and Military Force of the Commonwealth is vested in the Governor-General as the Queen's representative. That prohibits the federal government passing the current laws they're trying to, giving themselves the right to bring foreign military in here. That's blatant treason, both against the Crown of England. Now, they think they're smart because they've removed the death penalty from our system. But in Halsbury's Laws of England, Volume 2, around paragraph 284, it's a felony treason. It's death by hanging or transport to the colonies for life. Well, we only got one way out colony. It's down on Macquarie Island. Send them down there. They can freeze to death.
Gotcha.
Might treat them a little better.
So a lot of the things the Australian government is doing at the moment, which should really be the Commonwealth Government of Australia, really, and they're not even that.
Commonwealth Parliament.
What is it?
It's Commonwealth Parliament.
Commonwealth Parliament.
It's Commonwealth Parliament.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, if you go to page 7, now listen, there's a lesson for you need to look at. Page 791, the middle of the last paragraph, it says, neither the federal nor the state parliament are sovereign bodies. They're simply legislatures with limited authority. If they attempt to pass a law in excess of that authority, the law is a nullity and affords no obedience. Now, what is a parliament? Go back to your page 791 and look at both the Commonwealth and the state in that diagram, and it says the executive, the legislature, and judicature. They're three distinct organs of both federal and state parliaments. So Queensland out, they knocked out their upper house, so they're finished.
Yeah, they don't have
they
a Senate,
can't do anything, nothing.
They got rid of their
so
Senate.
none of their laws have any authority. No. But see,
right?
all laws must be put together. Yep. All laws must be put together by the Governor-General in Council. He selects 10 from the lower house of federal parliament, 8 from the upper, and they hold all the portfolios. So who are these idiots sitting in our parliament claiming to be the cabinet? The only cabinet is your kitchen cupboard. That's a cabinet, or the bathroom cabinet. But it is not lawful to have a national cabinet or a state cabinet. That's a nonsense. And it's blatant treason and it's unconstitutional.
So
we have an executive.
Where did they get this idea from of a cabinet if it's not anywhere within the Constitution?
Because it's political parties, and they snuck in from the beginning of Federation until now, bit by bit by bit. Now, if you look at 44 of the Constitution, it says anyone who works for a company of more than 25 people is impossible for them to sit. They can't. 44.
Disqualification.
Yeah. Yeah, disqualification. As any director, where are we? There's one in there.
Here it is at the bottom. Has any direct or indirect pursue, I can't even say the word, pecuniary interest in the agreement with the public service of the Commonwealth, otherwise than a member and in common with the other members of an incorporated company consisting of more than 25 persons. It's an immediate...
All right, every political... Yeah, that's it. That knocks them out because every political party is an incorporated company. They have to comply with the Australian Electoral Commission. So none of them are lawful.
Wow.
If you read section 61 to 68, no, sorry, that's for the governor, Governor-General. 7 through 23, you'll see that you can only vote for one senator once, and that pool of people is put together by the governors of the states.
Yeah,
I'm going too fast for you, am I? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, so which part do you want? I've got 7, 8.
Go to 7. Yep. No, that's the clauses.
That's the way this is.
Number 7. Yeah, that's all right.
Method of election of senators?
Yeah, that's it there. All right, the governors of the states put all the people together, not the parliament. I mean, we've got a situation of absolute stupidity in the federal parliament now. The government, the parliament, or the so-called prime minister, takes a petition to the Governor-General who prorogues the parliament. What does prorogue mean? Dissolve.
Yeah.
Well, how come the parliament's still existing and we're still paying the idiots? They're trying to pretend they've still got the right to be there. No, they haven't. They have no right to be there except for the purpose of debating and passing legislation called there by the Executive Parliament. They have no other right to be there. All this yearly salaries is a nonsense. It's stealing. It's a rip-off. But you try to explain that to the general public, they don't really want to know because they can't believe these people are so nice. They got nice eyes. I heard someone tell me a few years ago they voted for Paul Keating because he had nice eyes. Didn't matter if he was the biggest crook on two legs, but he had nice eyes. There's only one thing missing is a hole between those eyes.
Well,
would have satisfied us. Even though you're not allowed to say that. I think it should be there. That's my opinion.
let's go on, Wayne. Let's go on to the next part because we could obviously go off in another direction and we'd have 50 more things to talk about.
Whenever. Where's your question?
Yeah, we have a bit of a structure here tonight. So here's one for me: is what we are doing here lawful? About talking about lawful rebellion. So actually, what we should be asking first is, of the Magna Carta, what is Article 61?
Article 61 is the right to go unhindered by any government to do whatever it takes to force them to comply with our Constitution or the imperial laws that come with it, including common law. Now, if you look at I said I come back to Sir Winston Churchill. He said in the British Parliament, it's time this Parliament understood that under the provisions of 61 of Magna Carta, the people can do whatever they like to us to force us to comply with their will, the common law, and their laws. It is a very, very powerful section of Magna Carta.
So, with regards to Article 61 of the Magna Carta, that was basically the clause that was put in after the barons had taken back the land for the people. And they finally did the agreement, and that was the one that said, if you do this again, we have a clause in here that no matter what you do, we can fight back if you do break this agreement in what's been said here.
Yes, it's actually a duty to fight back and defend it. It's a duty on the people to do it.
It's our duty. Yeah. So my next question would be is, see, I'm actually on bail at the moment, and I have bail conditions. So my next question is what we are talking about here lawful to be speaking about lawful rebellion?
Yes, because it's under the Constitution. It is our law, and you can discuss the law with anybody. They tried to shut me up by saying you're giving legal advice. No, I'm not. I'm telling people what their lawful rights are under our lawful Constitution, and that includes Magna Carta, Habeas Corpus, 1688 Bill of Rights, Act of Settlement, and the King James Bible. They are our rights. They can't legislate to take them away. So right. You being on bail, you have to commit a criminal offence, and you're not. They're the criminals by putting you on bail. Because when you were taken before the court, they would have said, you've been charged with so-and-so, how do you plead? You're not charged with anything. There's an allegation that you've committed an offence against the law. What law? What law? There isn't any laws in this country. There's none. None of them are lawful. So you're not on bail from anything except the farce.
I'm on the illusion of
a money-making racket. That's it. You're under a big illusion.
Yeah.
And it is an illusion. It's a lie.
The police are still happy to hold.
Well, if you look up on... see, the police can't hold you anything because the police are supposed to be under the direct control of the governors of the states under the Statute of Westminster, and they are there to arrest the Parliament if the Parliament doesn't behave itself. That's a fact. That's why they've tried over 9 times by referendums to knock out the statute of monopolies, because that's the authority for police to exist, the authority for magistrates, judges, politicians to actually exist. They don't exist by the Constitution. they're established under the authority granted by the Constitution. There's a difference. You've got to understand that. I spent 17 years in the police force, and they chucked me into prosecuting for a couple of years for misbehaving. So I sat there and learned and read all their cases of the High Court, because decisions of the Supreme Court of a state are not part of the common law. They say they are, but that's a lie. In fact, the High Court ruled in Henry Lipperhar versus the state of Western Australia, 1999, that the decisions of the Supreme Court, they're binding on the inferior courts they come from, but they do not form part of the common law. So there's no precedent set there. However, when the decisions of the High Court are published, they form part of the common law and they're binding on the courts, judges and people of every state. There it is in a nutshell. So your Supreme Court rulings are nothing but nonsense to anybody outside of a case appealed from magistrates court, district court to them. It doesn't form part of the common law. So it's not.
Well, I've got a magistrate. I believe my search warrant was issued by a magistrate. I believe so, and my bail conditions are they're ridiculous, to be honest.
The search warrant issued by a magistrate. Yeah, well, that's an interesting thing. The magistrates are stipendiary magistrates. They're justice of the peace, and they must sit with at least two of them or three. Not one. The Act of Habeas Corpus says no single judge can sit in judgment of anybody. If you look at Section 73 of the Constitution, it says judges, plural.
Yeah, it does.
The only judges, because the only judges are you. 23 of your peers or 12 of your peers, depends on what you want. They now got this new character thing they put out, trial with a jury. That's another nonsense. It's trial by jury, by the judges. They are the judges. The judge or so-called judge or justice sitting in a case with a trial by jury, all he is a source of the law. And let's face it, I can say most of the ones in this state wouldn't have a clue in hell what they're talking about. They are operating under acts and statutes which are not law. And they haven't sworn the oath of allegiance. And they're all quorums. A quorum is an unelected judge, a person impersonating a judge who isn't one. This is what I told this clown down here last year, the magistrate. You swore an unlawful oath. You're personating an officer of the Crown. I am one. The only one can establish this court is me. You're a traitor. You're now attainted of treason under Section 44 of the Constitution, because I'm accusing you of committing treason. There it is. You're attainted. You go to court and prove it. You don't have any
do they? Wayne?
No, if they don't, they can't sit without that oath. I'll tell you something else they can't sit with either. The 1611 King James Bible must be in that court for you to swear an oath on. If it's not there, that is the only instrument that constitutes a lawful court. That's how cracked up these idiots are.
What section is that, Wayne, when it talks about the judges? Is it 71 or 72?
73. Judges are adjudicators between the law and the people in the case before them. I think it's 73. It's in there anyway. I know where it's in there. I've read it enough times.
I've got the sections here. So there's 73.
Yeah.
Are you sure it's not appointment, tenure, and remuneration?
Oh, it's in there. I see. Chapter 3 starts at section 72.
Yeah. Guys, anyone who's watching this, I would suggest that after you do watch this, spend 8 hours of your time and actually go and read the Constitution. And if you don't understand bits, go through it 3 or 4 times. So you can get the full context of what's being written in the paragraph. Otherwise, you're wasting your time by just just picking little bits of it. It really is amazing. Just go through it and read it.
There's two cases which are very interesting. And one is the Cable decision, which is now known right across the world as the Cable Principle. At CLR, Commonwealth Law Reports 189 and 1996. And if you read that, it's a pretty intricate case but it states quite clearly what your rights are in the court and what the rights, who the court is, and how the courts are locked together under paragraph 52 of the first judge. I think that was Murray Gleeson was the Chief Justice then. He said all courts are part of a federal judicial system with a high court that's summoned. So every single court in the country is tied to the high court as an inferior court.
Wow.
I know you wanted to know that.
I think what a lot of people are starting to learn, that everything we think we know about Australia is an illusion. From the government, the way the government is structured, from the police, who they're meant to take orders from the politicians, the way they structure themselves, everything is one big illusion, one big lie, and one big farce. And we are basically victims, and we're a cautionary tale of a complacent society. Would it be safe to say that?
Absolutely. If you look at the police, under Section 12 of the Police Act of Western Australia, that was 1864, by the way, every police officer is an independent law enforcement officer employed by the state of Western Australia. The state is the people. The state is the people. Poor old Davo's got a headache. He's got to lay down. You're excused, Davo, this time.
Davo, if you want, mate, you're not feeling great, you can basically get off the live, mate, and we can save a bit of the bandwidth if you are.
Yeah, I'll jump off.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, fellas. Back soon.
Thanks, mate.
You're welcome. Yeah, get well soon.
That'll save us a bit of the bandwidth.
Right.
So let's go into the next
question.
part. Yeah, so let's go through this. We've established what the Magna Carta is. We've established how it has relevance to the Australian Constitution and how it's still binding because of, you know, the previous things you've spoken about, right? Now we need.
You've got to say Commonwealth Constitution, because the Australian Constitution is the green mucus one. That has no authority.
I feel like I'm at school again. I'm getting told off by the teacher. I love it.
Well, I'm not really an expert. I've got a lot of knowledge on the Constitution, and as I say to everybody, if you find somewhere that something I've said is incorrect, and you tell me, I'll go back and research and come back on Facebook and concede that I'm wrong. This is about knowledge to everybody, not me saying I'm this, I'm that, because I'm not a hero. I'm not an idol. I'm not an expert. I'm nothing except a subject of the Queen who's sworn an oath of allegiance to the Queen, and I'll uphold that until the day I die. That's who I am. And
what
I'm
constitutes
here for
an expert,
everybody.
Wayne? You know, what constitutes
an expert? An exeter has been this. No, you've got to look at it. Exeter has been the spurts of drip under pressure. I don't think there's any experts in the Constitution, because no matter how many times you read it, you'll read something else and it will line up with another section. You'll think, well, hang on, I got that slightly wrong. So you've got to go back and in your mind put it all together so that it reads according to the rest of the text. Yeah. And we're helped greatly by the fact, if you go into your archives, you can look up all of the Hansard from the Australasian Council. It's over 10 years. And there's some 50-odd thousand pages of it, plus notes. I think it's about 56,000. What's in the annotated Constitution just brings clarity to the sections that are there. But that is, although it's not law, it's highly referenced by the High Court as how the Constitution should be interpreted, and that's by the people who wrote it. You know, Dr. John Quick and Sir Robert Garran, you get quotes off people, they've approved this new Constitution. Well, sorry, Sir Robert Garran was the last one to die, and that was in 1957. So where'd they get that crap from?
Yeah.
Maybe the maggots came out and started teaching. I
wouldn't be surprised if back then, you know, the true people that are holding the agenda of this world got in touch with the education system in this country to restructure what we think we know about our Australian history, so we don't catch on to the lie and the deception and the deceit and the farce and, you know, the manipulated systems. And, you know, it's hard to see anything's wrong when you don't know what it's meant to look like in the first place. You know, it's hard to know whether
Of
you're
course.
being deceived
That's
by the
why-
laws if you don't know how to read them.
Well, that's why I embarked on a system of first doing posts on Facebook, and that was a waste of time because people don't have time in today's society to turn on their computer and do a heap of reading. But they can turn on their computer, sit there having tea and doing things, and listen to and watch a video which explains exactly the same as in those posts. So, and on top of that, I've been going around from place to place. We've just got back from doing a lecture in Perth and in Bunbury, which is in total, the trip was about 2,500 k's by the time we bothered to get home. But it was fun, and we met a lot of people, and there's a lot of people are sitting out and looking and learning and standing up and saying, this government's wrong. They've got, they're our government. They've got to do what we say. And that's what we need. Everybody to get an education, as you say, because if you don't know what the law says, you don't know that what they're doing is unlawful. That's why Gough Whitlam took the Constitution, or the teaching of it, out of our schools in 1975. Dumb down the people. Why teach them what they should know? Teach them the garbage that we think they should know. They're all a bunch of lefties, and I don't care which political party they are. They don't like me calling that. They're all a bunch of traitors. Under 44 anyway. I just removed myself from Cullison's mob because he registered his political party. He seems to think he can go into parliament that way. Well, that's fine. He can think. That's his right. I'm not going to knock him for what he's doing. I'm just going to say I don't agree. So I've taken steps to step outside his party. I don't want anything to do with it while it's registered. To me, that's jumping into the frying pan.
In 1974, I noticed that there were a few. They actually tried to pass a few referendums.
Yeah, they all failed, but don't worry about that. Yeah, look.
Yeah, they were trying to do some serious stuff.
I've got a list. There's some serious stuff in those referendums they tried to get through. But see, in 1977, when they put the referendum through to try and get our approval to pay local government direct from the federal parliament, that would have approved local government.
Yeah.
But we said no. We said no in 1974, no in 1977. And as I teach everybody, in 1988, they tried to add local government to our constitution. Local government, according to them, existed already in every state. They passed the act in number 88 in 1979, and around the same time, in every state in 1979, they added local government to their state constitutions and passed acts to cover it. Now, what they tried to say is that referendum failed. No, that referendum said no. It didn't fail at all, because referendums are not at federal level. They're taken state by state so as not to offend the laws of any state. And they apply at federal level because we said no. Now, if it is at federal level, why did they ask every state? Why didn't they say vote in a referendum where you vote under federal law? We didn't. We voted under our right under the Constitution in a referendum under 128. And we said, no, that's not federal level. Every state said no. No means nothing. Nothing. You can't have it.
So section 128, it's the bottom part that people really want to read, where it says, no alteration diminishing the proportionate representation of any state in either House of the Parliament or the minimum number of representatives of the state in the House of the Representatives, or increasing or diminishing or otherwise altering the limits of the state or in any manner affecting the provisions of the Constitution in relation thereto, shall become law unless the majority of the electors voting in the state approve the proposed law. That's what you're talking about, isn't it, Wayne?
Yep, 128. That's it. And it must be a absolute majority of politicians vote, and then we must vote, and that must be a majority of people in a majority of states. Well, the question was to add 119A to our Constitution. And we said no, because it was 4 questions. The first question was, do you approve the continuance of local government? Hang on. It's not, local government's not at federal level, it's at state. So they put it to us that the state, it was allowed to continue at state level. And we said no. So how was that at a federal level? It's not. It's at state. So the state said, no, you can't continue it. The next one, do you approve the establishment? We said no, so you can't establish it either. Then the empowering and the making of bylaws, we said no. So what part of these numbskulls don't they understand about no? It's two letters, N-O. Means
But they did it
you
anyway.
can't have it.
They did it
That's
anyway.
blatant treason to go against. Yes.
They created councils,
Well,
everything.
Yeah. Well, why didn't the Governor General sack the Parliament for failing to comply with the will of the people? Because the Governor General at that time was a spineless, weak weasel who worked for the Australian government, which is a registered company, and not the Commonwealth of Australia as representing the Queen in right of the people, which is what he should have been doing. He's just a spineless, gutless weasel. If he doesn't like me saying that, boo-hoo, I'm an officer of the Crown. I'm telling you, you're a spineless, gutless weasel, the one we got now.
Wayne,
He did not uphold his oath.
Wayne, you know what I'd love to do? Organise maybe another chat next week with you, and we can actually go into the local council and show how, you know, all the councils are basically just private companies that are taking money out of people, and none of that stuff's completely lawful at all.
Yep.
I think that would be another great live to do where we could really go into and touch base on the Australia Act, the Local Government Act, and really show people just how shafted they're getting and how much these people are lying through their teeth to us.
Yeah, that would be good, because I've actually got a copy of the Australia Act and all their little sections and how they come about it. And people get a shock when you find out they just overturn the Constitution, which is imprisonment for life.
Well, let's
it isn't maybe, it is imprisonment. Yeah.
Let's hope we make that happen. So the next question is, so you've already submitted paperwork into the UK. Tell us about that, and you know, what was the process in doing that, and how binding is it, and how much weight does that bear what you've done already?
Well, to start off with the paperwork, Wyatt Wharton, a gentleman from Queensland, is a nice guy, very knowledgeable. He filed in 2014 a lawful rebellion.
Oh, okay.
He did that under Clause 61 of Magna Carta. So that's there. Now, what we did, my wife and I, we sat down and we did notice of seizure of the three lawful tiers of the federal government, the three lawful tiers, which is executive, the legislature, and judicature, because they weren't being used. And we have that right under Clause 61. I'm an officer of the Crown and I have the right to do that. So I did. Then I seized the Green Constitution and hold it in a state of fraud until such time they take it before a lawful court. We don't have any here, so they have to go to England. Now, and it stays that way until a lawful court says it's lawful, and they can't. Now, we seized every act, statute, rule, regulation, order, or anything else proposed by or put together by the political parties, and we hold that in a state of fraud until such time as it's put to a lawful court, going back to England. Now, we then seized every single thing in this country, every asset of this country, and hold that under the Crown for and on behalf of the people. This is all for on behalf of the people, which is a lawful right to do it. I served that on Scott Morris on the 7th of January 2019. They acknowledged it by blocking me off his emails and everything else. And I know he got it because I have friends in the Senate and different places who told me they got it, and they were deadly worried about it. Now they're trying to poo-poo it and say through all their trolls that they put on Facebook that I had no right to do it. Who the hell do I think I am? Well, sorry, I'm a Commonwealth public officer by my oath I took in the police force. On the 16th of January 2012, I swore an oath to become a Commonwealth public official. And that is an appointment through the Archbishop of Canterbury, not the one done through the federal parliament, which they think they got the power, but they're not officers of the Crown, so they can't. I am a Commonwealth public officer and a Commonwealth public official. I was awarded the OWB for my research into our common law and our constitution. All that says I know to a degree what I'm talking about. I'm nothing special. I'm just an officer of the Crown, a peacekeeper. I don't get paid. I do what I do for the people of this country. So that's where I come from. Now, do I have the right to do it? Yes. So does every single person in this country, living man. In 2011, I went before Justice Corboy in the Supreme Court of Western Australia, and I tricked the state solicitor into admitting my name in capital letters is a legal fiction. And I straight away said, do you have a written wedding contract between me and that legal fiction? And he said, no. I said, then you forced me to come here as an advocate for the legal fiction. So from now on, that's what I am. I am a living, breathing person, a man or woman. I'm a man because I align to that. I don't align to Mr. because that's gender defining, and I'm not a Mr. My name is Wayne Kenneth of the family Glue. I'm a living man. And that's how I address all my stuff in the courts and everything now, and everybody should do that. However, I thought about the last few weeks, I think we should say, I'm part of the Commonwealth, and my name is Wayne Kenneth Glue, because I am part of the Commonwealth, because we the people are the Commonwealth. Whereas the people, it's not whereas the government or the parliament or some bunch of crooks belonging to a political party, it's whereas the people. And we are the people, they're not. They're there to represent us, represent what we want to our parliament in relation to where we feel they should take our constitution and our law. And they refuse flatly to do it because they're as thick as 5 bricks. You can't put it any other way. They do not know the difference between yes and no.
Are they thick, Wayne, or are they just they're purposely not following what's meant to be done because of the way of the structure of everything?
You have to be thick to do that.
They're doing it on purpose.
No, you have to be thick to believe you've got the right to break the law and think you can get away with it. You've got to be thick. Because most criminals are very, very intelligent people. So I'm not saying politicians aren't intelligent. They are. I know quite a few of them. They're nice people. But they're still lying, thieving traitors by their actions. I'm sorry if they don't like that. We've given constitutions to these people. We've given them text. We go and talk to them. They kick us out of their office because they don't want to know. My favourite politician here, his secretary always says, you can leave now. That's her favourite saying, you can leave now. I said, thank you, I know when I can leave. She gets all upset with me. She's a nice lady, but I just walk out and go back another time. But she does listen. Some things she changes. She actually got a King James Bible to swear on when you swear an oath or swear a warrant. So she is listening a bit, I said.
So the main thing now is, one of the main reasons we decided to do this tonight, and shout out to Graham Jeffs who put this together in the background there, was how do we get behind you, Wayne, with regards to this, and what do we do as people in order to, now that we've established that the Magna Carta still stands, Article 61 of the Magna Carta still stands, it still ties in with our Constitution. How do we now, as a people, get behind a movement that cannot be stopped or combated with all of this political red tape and bullshit? How do we get behind you and actually have this Magna Carta actually be Article 61 come into play?
Well, like last time we did something in relation to the documents we filed them into the High Court of England to have them look at them, and into the Royal Court of Justice. Now, you'll get told by people you can't do that unless you go through the registry. Yes, you can, because we are not asking for a direction. We're not asking for a judgment. We're putting it to them. Do we have a case? And they said they've received it. They said they're looking into it. And that's what we've got so far. Now, I'm not a fool. I know it's going to cost a lot of money to go to England. I know we're going to need a barrister or some high-ranking person there who needs some money. Shortly, we'll be in a position to finance that. So from the point of view of everybody, I'm not asking people for money. We're in a position shortly to be able to finance that, and I'll do it. But in the meantime, everybody else can get the documents I produced and do the same, just to let them know that they can't do what they're doing, but you can go to your politician and serve a notice on him. I think Larry Hannigan just put a notice up on his site telling him, we don't want all these promises. We want you to abide by our constitution. We don't want all these things you say you're going to do. Just put us back under our law, our constitution. Give us our rights. And I think the biggest reason that, or the biggest thing we can do as a people in this country is civil disobedience. If they say, we're not going to do this if you don't have this vaccine, then we say, well, we're not going to work. We're not going to do anything. We're going to shut down everything you've got until you decide you're going to do what we want, because you are representing us. You are there to govern for us.
And they act.
You don't get to do. They're acting unlawfully, totally unlawfully. And they can stop it. I mean, look at Scott Morrison. What a lying flea bag. I can't believe he stands there and lies like he does. He knows the law because we've been sending it to him. And he just ignores it and goes on with what he's doing and thinks, I can do what I like. He gets away with it because whoever's behind him doesn't give a hang about this country. They give a hang about how much money's going in their pockets. Look at that notice come out the other day. What has that scumbag from Victoria got? $91 million worth of assets. Where did he get those? He's a professional politician. He didn't get it through honest means. We need to find out where those dishonest means come from and expose them. And that goes for every state. Expose them for what they are. Get people watching them, watching their every move. They are our servants. We're entitled to know what they're doing. Follow them.
Oh, they should disclose all of them.
Different places. Absolutely, but they're not.
They shouldn't have their privacy.
They should, but they're not. No, they're not. If I went back into politics now, I'd change everything. I don't have anything hidden except my personal life between my wife and myself. Everything else is open to the public. If you are going to talk for and on behalf of the people or assist the people, then you have a duty to be totally transparent. I don't care if they want to be part of the Labor Party, part of the Socialist Communist Party or anything else, but you must tell us first. There's no good saying we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and go and do the opposite. That's nothing but a nonsense. And you have to be a brain-dead half-wit to expect us to put up with that crap, because that's all it is, garbage. We shouldn't have to.
So, Wayne,
we're human beings. Yes.
With regards to what we can do now, you said something about sending in the same paperwork. How do we get our hands on it? Is it already a PDF form? Have you got it?
It's on Larry Hannigan's. It's on Larry Hannigan's site.
Yep.
And if you can't find it on there, get hold of me and we'll find it on my computer and send it to you.
I think what we'll do is just to get rid of the middleman. Let's just, I'll get, when we're done with this Zoom call, I'll create a Google Drive and I'll put the document in the Google Drive, and anyone can just click the link at the top of this video and download the document. Now, what is the process of serving the document? Is it, you have to send it, you can send it by email, or do you have to produce this in person? Does it have to be in a sealed envelope? What is the process of, serving this, this paperwork?
Practically all of the above, but what we did is you serve it. You go online. I served it on Lord Speaker of the House, Lord Fowler. You can serve, and then I served on the whole lot, and I got a notice back. You can't do that. You got to do it on individuals. So choose an individual and serve it on them, because they're there representing us. We are a colony of England. They must serve us too. So yes, serve it on them. If you, I'll give you my email address when you're off here. and you email me your address, and I'll get the document sent to you, and probably tomorrow.
No
So you'll
problem.
have them.
And does it have? It has to be signed and then scanned to the computer. Does it have to have your personal signature on it, or does your
Well, it should do.
And
It should do. Mary Gaudron, when she was in the High Court and when she was in the Supreme Court of New South Wales, said an unsigned document has the same value as toilet paper. So
great.
I'd sign it, and if, like, I've made copy documents and got people to sign them as a backup for what I did, and a lot of people did, and thousands of people did. I mean, it numbered quite a few 100,000 in documents, but it needs more. I know Graham thinks, and he is quite right, we can do this, but we need to, as a group, file and demand that England steps in here, because when you do it, you are the law we're putting to them is the Commonwealth Constitution Act 1900 UK and the Commonwealth Constitution. There's a reason for that. We operate under the Constitution, a derivative from their Act. However, we put the Act together to start off with. Queen Victoria just cemented in place several issues that could not be removed by the Parliament. I mean, there's several sections of the Constitution says until the Parliament otherwise decides. Well, the Parliament is the three tiers: executive, legislative, and judicature. It is not the reigning party, as they call themselves. It's not them. So all the laws made by them or alterations to the Constitution are automatically invalid. The legislation has to be put together by the Governor and Council under the will of the people. And that's how it is. That needs to be explained. It's a pretty complex system. When explained, becomes very, very simple how our government actually works. And it's not how it is.
Gotcha.
It isn't how it is.
Wait.
These politicians can't put legislation together. They can't.
Apologies.
They're breaking the law by doing it.
Apologies, mate. You were still going. We've got a bit of a delay here. Apologise, guys, if it sounds like I'm cutting in. I'm saying something, then I get a delay where Wayne comes through. Keep going, Wayne.
No, our Parliament is the three tiers. Now, you've got to understand the legislature just debates and passes the legislation in the lower house. In the upper house, they compare it against the Constitution, whether it complies. It doesn't matter whether it's state or federal level. If you read HCA 48 of 1996, there's a Western Australian case where the Attorney General of Western Australia tried to say the states existed before Federation. No, they didn't. They were colonies. Now, when they became states, they become compliant with the Commonwealth Constitution. In fact, to become states, they became states under the provisions of 107, 108 and 109 of the Constitution.
Yeah.
Their Constitution continued subject to the Commonwealth one under 106, sorry. Now, if you read HCA 48 of 1996, it's on the High Court website, start at paragraph 17 and it explains a whole lot how the system must work. And the only way the states work is everything they pass is subject to the Commonwealth Constitution. Now, when we discuss the Australia Act, I'll explain why there is no residual powers that carried over from the colonies to the states, because it didn't. And if you read 5138 of the Constitution, the annotated one, you'll see it's in there. It explains it quite clearly. There was no authority for the Australia Act, but we'll get into that when we discuss that one.
Yeah, well I think we'll make these a little bit more, often, and we'll do these a little bit more. I've lost my wording here. I think we'll do these a little bit more often and a little bit more consecutively. Like every couple of weeks or whatever else, we could put one together. Because I think there's so much in there that people need to know about our history and the way we're structured, and just the amount of lies and excuse my language, but bullshit that's going on is just blows my mind. Especially since I started reading the Constitution, the Magna Carta, the Constitution of 1900, the UK one, prior to the 1901. you really start getting an insight as to what they're saying is, what they're saying is lawful in our society and what really is law according to, the backbone of everything our laws are built upon, which is the Commonwealth Constitution. So Wayne, we'll finish there. I reckon we'll get the I'll get the documents off when we get off this live, and we'll discuss how we can get them to the people. I'll get some instructions put together so people know just how to serve the paperwork and to who. And let's start putting a fire under these politicians' asses and get them being a bit uncomfortable. I can see Dan Andrews getting a few of these in the very foreseeable future. So yeah, anything you'd like to?
If you want me for a, yep. I'm going to teach you to talk properly. No more F words. It isn't an a-hole, it's a backside. It's moo-poo, not the other word. It's crap, not what you call it. You got to learn to speak properly, like a good boy. Your mother will be proud of you.
I have to learn to speak.
Your mother will be proud of you.
I have to learn to speak with a certain level of professionalism. So,